Hey y'all, welcome back to Tactical Alliance Gaming and another Raid Shadow Legends video. So, this morning I was sitting here, relaxing, enjoying my morning coffee on my day off of stream, which if you don't know, do stream on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Link is in the description below. But I digress. I'm sitting here enjoying my coffee out of my awesome Darth Vader mug that my daughter got me. And this information came out from Plarium. Times 10 champions for this weekend from Ancient, Sacred, and Voids. Leorius the Proud, Mashald, Noelle, Elder Scarg, Inquisitor Chalm, Farcilla's Gravedirt, Cornelia, and Masked Fearmonger. And to top it off, they have a guaranteed champion event, okay, that is going to be launched at the same time for none other than Serris, the arena debuff stripping boss. All right. So, what champions are coming into the game? Well, let's jump over there and take a look. All right, so first up, we got Leorius the Proud. All right. A1, double hit, single target. Each hit, 60% chance of a decreased defense debuff. Big version, 60%. Damage increases by 20% if the target has less than 60% HP. His A2, Rage of the Pride. The Rage. Attacks all enemies 2 times. This champion is immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, and true fear debuffs when the skill is not on cooldown. And his A3, Awesome Roar. Attacks all enemies, has an 80% chance of placing a true fear debuff for 1 turn. Before attacking, has an 80% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Yeah, pretty good stuff, right? His passive active effect instantly places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn before receiving a fatal hit. The passive effect, damage increases as the HP decreases. Now, his HP decreases by 1%. Well, his damage increases by 1%. It's a 1-for-1 trade-off there. Next up is my Salad. All right, we all know this guy, real pain in the butt in arena. Anyway, Bloodsucker for his A1 attacks 1 enemy, heals this champion by 30% of the damage inflicted, will then attack enemies under leech debuffs. His A2, Tornado, places a 30% increased speed and a 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Places a true fear and a leech debuff on all enemies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. His A3, Open Wounds. That just sucks. Pour some salt in them things. Attacks 1 enemy. 80% chance of stealing all buffs from the target before attacking. Places a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. Also places 2 15% continuous heal buffs on this champion for 3 turns. Damage increases by 50% against targets that have no buffs. All right. Now, and he does have ally attack in dungeons by 34% on his aura. Next up, we have Noelle. Now, what's this guy got going? Shadowkin Lego. Alrighty. A1, Smell Fear, attacks 1 enemy, has a 40% chance of decreasing the duration of 2 random buffs on the target by 1 turn. If the target is under fear or true fear debuff, has a 65% chance of decreasing the duration of all of the target's buffs by 1 turn instead. His A2 attacks 1 enemy, will ignore 30% of the target's defense, fills this champion's turn meter by 25% after the attack. If the target is under a fear or true fear debuff, decreases the cooldown of the dismay skill by 1 turn. Now, what's the dismay skill, you may ask? Well, the dismay skill is as follows. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of decreasing each enemy's turn meter by 20%. If there are enemies under fear or true fear debuffs, will also fill this champion's turn meter by the amount those enemies lose. All right, now as passive, whenever an enemy's turn meter is fully depleted by any champion, has a 50% chance of placing a true fear debuff on that enemy for 1 turn. That is Noelle. Next up, my man, the Scarg of Elders. Elder Scarg is up. All right, now what's he got that makes him so special, right? He's a legendary. Why is he special? Well, on his A1, he attacks one enemy. That ain't so special. But places a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns if the attack is critical. Places a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion if the attack is not critical. All right, okay, yeah. On his A2, attacks one enemy 3 times, places an extra hit for each buff or debuff on the target, can place up to 3 extra hits, places an HP burn debuff for 2 turns, and a True Fear debuff for 1 turn on all enemies if this attack places all 3 extra hits. Steals all the buffs from the target after the attack. Cool, right? Yeah, okay. His A3, Elder's Clarion, places a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns, places a Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, places a True Fear debuff for 1 turn on targets under block damage buffs, places a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns on targets under shield buffs. These debuffs cannot be resisted. Also places a Provoke debuff on legendary champions for 1 turn. All right, cool. What else do we got? Well, we've got a passive. Now, what's his passive? Well, receives 15% less damage from legendary champions. Inflicts damage equal to this champion's attack when attacked by legendary champions. The extra hit cannot be critical. And he does have ally crit rate in arena by 30%. So that's what he's built for. He is built for arena. All right, next up, Inquisitor Chalm. On his A1, attacks one enemy, 50% chance to decrease the duration of a random buff on the target by 1 turn. Every time an enemy places a debuff on an ally, uses this skill against that enemy. These counterattacks will only deal 50% of the normal damage and cannot be critical. On his A2, Cow the Horrors. Cow, hey, I got cows outside. Attacks one enemy 3 times, will ignore 25% of the target's defense, will ignore a further 25% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. Places a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. His passive, each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5%. Whenever an ally receives a Fear or True Fear debuff from an enemy, this skill will instantly remove that debuff and fill the ally's turn meter by 15%. With ally accuracy and Doom Tower by 60. Next up, Farcilla's Grave Dirt. I've never been able to say that name. Kind of cool. I don't know why he's got the bell on his head, but okay. I like the Liberty Bell. A1 attacks one enemy, 20% chance of placing a Provoke debuff for 1 turn, places a 50% decreased attack debuff for 1 turn if the target is under a Fear or True Fear debuff. His A2 attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction buff or debuff for 2 turns. On his A3, he places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 30% of their max HP. Also places a 15% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. His passive, immune to Fear and True Fear debuffs. Whenever an ally's HP drops below 50% from an enemy attack, has a 50% chance of placing a Fear debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Whenever an ally dies, has a 75% chance of placing a True Fear on all enemies for 1 turn. And ally defense and faction crips by 30%. Next up, we have Cornelia. All right. New dwarf. She actually hasn't been in the game very long. I do have one. I just haven't built her yet. Anyway, her A1 attacks one enemy, has a 40% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target skills by 2 turns at random. On her A2, 80% chance of placing a sleep on all enemies for 1 turn. Passive effect is whenever an enemy loses a sleep debuff placed by this skill, has a 50% chance of replacing it with a Fear debuff for 1 turn instead. I'm seeing a pattern with fears here. You know, Halloween, fears, kind of makes sense. A3 places a sleep debuff on an ally for 1 turn, heals that ally by 50% of their max HP, and fills their turn meter by 50% whenever the sleep debuff expires or gets removed. Heals that ally by 100% and completely fills their turn meter if the sleep debuff is lost due to taking damage from an enemy. And ally speed in all battles by 18%. Next up is Mass Fearmonger. His A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit decreases the target's turn meter by 7.5% if the target is under fear or true fear debuff. Reduces the cooldown of this champion's Taste of Despair skill by 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. On his A2, attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a fear or debuff for 1 turn, and a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Has a 75% chance of placing a true fear debuff on 2 enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. 1 true fear debuff will be placed on the enemy with the lowest turn meter, while 1 will be placed on the enemy with the highest turn meter. Man, there's a lot of stipulations on that. His A3 attacks one enemy, will ignore 35% of the target's defense if the target is under a fear or true fear debuff. Places a block debuff for 1 turn and a 30% increased speed buff for 2 turns, and a revive on death buff for 2 turns on this champion if the attack kills an enemy. His passive, this is the nice one, it's the shortest one to read. Taste of Despair fills this champion's turn meter by 50% whenever an enemy's HP drops below 20%. But that's not why we're here, right? That's not what we're looking for. What we want to know is right here, the guaranteed champion, Madame Serris, who is available after 30 void shards. So y'all better been saving or whale out, one of the two, if you're going to go for this one. Anyway, what she got that makes her a freaking legendary in an epic skin, okay? What do we got? Panic Spread on the A1. Attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a fear for 1 turn. This chance increases to 30% if the target is under 1 buff or debuff. This chance increases to 45% if the target is under 2 or more debuffs. Her A2, Tricks and Treats. Yeah, attacks all enemies, has a 40% chance of stealing 1 random buff from each target. Places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns if any buff is stolen. Places a true fear debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have buffs stolen. But see, that's not the thing, all right? Madame Serris is known right here for this ability, Midnight Ritual, removes all buffs from enemies, places a 50% decreased attack debuff and 60% decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Typically, used her in Arena is where you mostly see her. She is viable pretty much everywhere. But that's mostly where you see her. Yeah, strip and replace. Oh, we gotta love it. Her passive places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. When attacked while under a shield buff, has a 35% chance of placing a fear debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. So, there it is, guys. Now remember, with these guaranteed champion events, if you do summon Madame Serris from any shard before you hit the 30th one, the event will end. Summoning her on the 30th also will not reset your mercy counters. All right, guys, so remember that. This is going to be awesome. Good champions in the mix with Leorius, Mashald, Elder Scarg I like, Inquisitor Chalm hits like a freaking truck, and Madame Serris, obviously the legendary disguised as an epic. Guys, are you going to pull this weekend trying to get that Madame Serris or one of the other champions? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget, guys, we do stream 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Twitch. Link in the description below. And also, while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, y'all. My goal, hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We'll see what happens. But anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you all next time.